Today we have Cody Smith with us.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Cody Smith,
Hello.
candidate for the Iowa House.
Tell us about your district. What district are you running in?
So I'm running for the House in Iowa House District 33, which is East Central Des Moines. So it includes a number of neighborhoods, including East Village, Highland Park, Birdland, Union Park, Capitol Park, kind of this whole East Central wedge of downtown Des Moines.
Okay. That's such an exciting area to run in, I feel like.
Yeah, it's been really fun. One of the things I love about the district is it's very diverse. It's very different neighborhoods from one corner to the other. We've got East Village, which is something that it's a neighborhood a lot of folks are familiar with. And then the east side near the fairgrounds, another neighborhood that folks are very familiar with, but they're very different. One is very, restaurants and places to go out and do some things. And the other is mainly families and homes and, near the fairgrounds. So it's really interesting to see the differences across the district.
Yeah. So what inspired you to run?
Honestly, the easiest answer I can give to that is that it felt too important to sit this election out. When I launched this campaign, I was originally challenging a primary incumbent that had been in her seat for 16 years. I had a lot of respect for her. I met with her to discuss the issues and to talk about whether or not I was going to run. And we had about a 2 hour discussion about what she was focused on and what I was focused on. A lot of alignment, and I respected her voting record. I did my research. But leaving that, I just felt like it's time for something new. And I couldn't ask more of the same people in office to fight harder, to push harder, to get different results if I wasn't willing to ask that of myself. So that's really a big motivator. I felt like one of the most bipartisan universal feelings right now is that the system is broken. It's not working for you and me. It's not working for anybody like us. It's working really well for those at the top, and that's about it. And so when I jumped in, I sat down actually on inauguration day, which was a terrible day for a lot of people. But I sat down and I thought, okay, if I lived in an Iowa that I could be proud of, what would it look like? And that's the day that I wrote my whole platform and haven't changed it since.
Nice. Um, I think we just cried a lot that day.
Yeah,
That was pretty much, we were not productive. You were far more productive than we were. I think we just kind of crashed out and stayed that way for a minute.
that's totally valid.
And then the next day we woke up and we formed insufferable wenches.
I love that. Yeah.
Do you have a primary opponent?
I do have one, I believe. The original person I was challenging has decided to not seek reelection, and then I've been the only candidate in the race for about the last month or so. But I believe I did get a new challenger last week. I don't really know much about him. I know he
That's
lives in the same
okay.
neighborhood, so that's about it.
Do you have is there a Republican running?
There hasn't been a Republican run for the seat, at least in the last 16 years. I don't
Wow.
anticipate that that'll happen again this year.
Wow. That's so uncommon for Iowa.
Right. Yeah, this is one of those, and this is actually another reason I jumped in. And this is what a lot of Democrats will refer to as a safe seat.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I take issue with is the framing of seats like that because we take them for granted. And it's
Mhm.
because we take seats like this for granted where I live in the middle of Des Moines and there's still yet only 5,336 registered Democrats in my district, which is about the same in your district, I would guess.
Yeah.
And there's about 35, 40,000 people that live here. And so, because we consider them safe seats, we don't do registration. We don't do a lot of persuasion of independents or people that are registered no party, which is 3,700 in our district. It's almost the second highest. It is the second highest. And so, there's just a lot of opportunities for us to invest more resources in seats like this. And the best example I use when I talk about this is Cindy Axne lost her race in 2022 by just over 2,000 votes. You can get 2,000 Democratic voters out of this district with the right candidate to inspire people to turn out that are already registered and persuade people to come out that haven't in the past and get registered and jump in on the progressive side of the ballot. So that's another reason I decided to jump in.
That's great. Um, what do you think makes you different from other Democratic candidates or even your primary opponent or, you know, anyone else running?
I think one of the things there are a couple of things. I think there are some things in politics and candidates that you just can't teach. It takes lived experience, and I'll start with that, and then I'll get into my background and what I think I bring professionally. But I grew up in a working class family where we lived on SNAP. I had the children's health insurance program. Medicaid got me through graduate school, and I went many years without health care. And I also know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I'm doing better for myself now that I just turned 30, but I mean, I've lived my entire life paycheck to paycheck. And I grew up in a family where we lost our home to foreclosure, and we had to choose between, paying the power bill or paying the rent. And thankfully, I was luckier than most. I had some support from just random family members at the right time to get through. And not everybody has that safety net. They don't have a grandpa like I did, or a grandma on the other side of the family like I did, to help co-sign a student loan or whatever it might have been to get me through at the right moment. But my whole point of bringing that up is what makes me unique here is I've lived through that, and I live through it every day. And now I live through the consequences of what it's like to grow up in a low income family and then try to make better for yourself and then be saddled by student debt, be saddled by credit card debt or personal debt, all of these things that it takes to get out of poverty and into a higher ranking on the social ladder, whatever you want to call it, to do better for yourself. Because I feel like, people just want to live a life where they can afford to live, they can see their family, they can be safe, they can enjoy their home, their environment around them. And that's something that I bring to this race that I don't think a lot of people bring to politics in general. But at least there are not enough of us. And when we look at the whole picture. So that's really my background. Now, on the other side of it, I think my professional expertise and my lived experience also align with the challenges that we face at the state level. We live in a state where we worry about the safety of our water and whether or not it impacts our health. We have the nation's second highest and fastest rising cancer rates, and it's completely unacceptable. Both of these issues touch every single Iowan and every Iowa family in every corner of our state, whether it's here in Des Moines or in Southeast Iowa in Burlington or Northwest Iowa up in Sioux City. And I have traveled this state throughout my career for the last decade. I've been working on water, energy, and climate issues as it relates to health. And I've traveled to every corner of the state and heard from thousands of Iowans over my career, and even met with farmers that were doing the right thing. But at this moment in time, it's very clear, despite millions of dollars spent over the last year, several years, and last decade, it's just getting worse. We're paying for our environmental pollution issues, whether it's water, air, soil, with our health. And we have to have people in the legislature that understand that. Now, this will be actually my sixth legislative session being up there working on environmental issues. And one of the big reasons to jump into this race for me, too, is there are no champions up there. Nobody's coming to save us on water quality, on soil, even things that cause cancer that we know of, like radon. And, there's not anybody up there with a huge amount of expertise on this. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, nobody does. But my background will allow me to go in there and provide solutions because when we look at the water issue, we have Democrats on one side, especially those of us in Des Moines dealing with the nitrates in our Raccoon River or Des Moines River, really worried about our health, talking about that. We've got great doctors who are also state representatives in the House talking about that angle. And then we've got on the other side of the aisle, the governor saying regulation's not the answer. And the Secretary of Agriculture, my former boss many, many years ago, saying, this is not the answer. We can't blame farmers. And then there's all this ground in between. And the only way that you bridge that gap is with experience and understanding and having tough conversations with the right people, whether it's farmers, local elected officials, other Republican legislators. And that's something I've been able to do in my career. And that type of approach and that process of creating change is something that I'm excited to bring to the legislature. And I think that's experience that's rare, and it's stuff that I'm very excited to leverage once I'm in.
Awesome. Um, so we mix in some random questions that are not necessarily policy related or whatever. So we
Mhm.
like to ask people what their favorite like political influencer, TikToker, podcaster, any of the above, like
Hey,
what you listen to.
well, I just watched Layla, and this is not flattery. This is I just watched you on It was a TikTok that you did, and or maybe it was on your Instagram page. We're talking about billionaires that like don't work. Loved that, by the way. That was really cool to hear. My favorite political influencer. Man, I feel like my job consists of just reading news all the time and watching this content, so it's really hard to pick. Um, I would say that I've always really appreciated the opportunity to listen to folks on NPR and also Iowa Public Radio. And so one of my favorite uh, series to watch is or listen to is River to River, because it's one of the opportunities to talk about in depth Iowa politics issues. And we've got political science professors, Ben Kiefer, moderating it, all of those folks being able to talk about it. So that's like my favorite podcast. I think, a big fan of Liz from Iowa and Sarah Booz, both here in Des Moines. Sarah Booz is actually my district, so friend of mine, and just being able to tune in to those folks has been really fun.
Yeah, we asked
Yeah,
that completely with selfish intent so we can start piggybacking off of everybody's favorites that we don't know of and don't listen to.
yeah.
Um, let's
I
see.
gotta. I'm trying to think about. There's this guy that is like Good Trouble or something. I'm trying to
On
remember his name
TikTok,
on Instagram.
Instagram, I think
Uh,
it's probably the same one that does he wear glasses?
Yes, he does. I
Yes.
really enjoy his takes. I just
Yeah,
love that he like, kind of gets his anger across in an effective way, and I
he
really
does.
appreciate that.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah. Yep, that's who it was.
Fantastic. That's a good answer. I like him a lot. Also, obviously, Liz from Iowa and Sarah both. We follow them. We love them.
Right,
NPR is always a good answer.
right.
And IPR.
Mm,
So once you are elected, um we always ask, are you planning on taking corporate PAC money? Um,
mm,
Before you answer, we like to kind of explain that because some people don't always understand what we're asking in that question. We are not asking you if you're going to take union PAC money. We want you
right.
to do that. We know elections are expensive, campaigns are expensive, all of this is crazy expensive. We're asking if you're going to take money from FedEx, Walmart, Exxon, Big Ag, those places.
Yeah, my honest answer is I don't think any of them want to give me money
Probably not.
because if there's some folks here in the state of Iowa that are well known for taking on corporations that are driven by greed and don't give a damn what the consequences of their profits are, it's folks like me. It's folks that do the work that I do full time. And I think people know that, whether it's the utilities that have monopoly status in our state or the Iowa Farm Bureau and big agribusiness. Uh, I've always approached these issues with a lot of pragmatism and clear-eyed focus on not just winning the argument, but achieving the outcome, or at least the best available outcome. I'm an environmental advocate in Iowa full time. That's my job. It's been my career. I know what it's like to make really tough sacrifices without compromising your values. The answer is no. And I don't think that they would be wanting to give me money. And I'll add in that a question that I get a lot. I will never take money from APAC either. I think what's going on in that situation in Gaza is heartbreaking. It's genocidal. And I think that we need to be very cautious of any candidate who's willing to accept from any of those sources.
Could not possibly agree more. And thank you for touching on that. We didn't even have to ask.
Right.
Um, so let's see. Layla, it's the major minor question. This one's yours because I always mess it up.
Okay, sure. So, looking at the legislature, if you could kind of pick what you would want to focus on as if it were college, what would you major in? And then what would you minor
Mm,
in?
that's a really good question. I like that. Um, I'll start with a little bit more about me. Another part of my identity and who I am is I'm an openly gay man. I've been open and out since 2015, and the first time I came out actually was during my student government campaign at Iowa State. I was the vice president of the student body there, and it was a very nerve-wracking, scary, intimidating way to come out on a college campus. But I'm really glad that I did it, and it's for this reason. It allowed me to connect with some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And we have seen since that time, longer ago than I care to admit at this point. I just turned 30 last year, as I mentioned. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting a little bit older. I'm remembering things that are happening like 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh, that's the fresh memory, right? So, but it allowed me to connect in a much more genuine way and understand that you don't have to understand everybody to be able to be empathetic and supportive and respectful of human dignity. And so I think that to answer your question most effectively, what I bring legislatively, policy wise, what I would major in is the ability to improve our environment so it's not a threat to our health. And that includes everything from water quality and indoor and outdoor air pollution, whether that's smog or pollution from coal plants or inside the house radon. That's the second leading cause of lung cancer in the state of Iowa. There's 400 Iowans that die every year from radon-induced lung cancer. And, these types of issues are not being led on in the legislature right now. In fact, when there are questions that come up, those folks reach out to me and my colleagues. And so I want to bring some of those perspectives and those pragmatic policy opportunities to the legislature. Their AI and data centers are another part of that. And how do we make sure that we're protecting both ratepayers for electricity and people who rely on clean water, all of us, from being exploited that way. And on the minor, this is getting back to the story that I told you before. I think I would minor in civil rights. I think we have to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. And we should actually do a lot more. We shouldn't be backsliding. We should absolutely restore gender identity to the Iowa Civil Rights Act. We should be ashamed that we were the first country or state in the country to remove a protected class from our civil rights code. That's absolutely abhorrent to me. And in fact, that day I was up there talking about lead service line disclosure legislation, which we passed last year, and I helped to write and pass, that protects kids from lead in drinking water. But I'm talking to the same people who are voting for that. And I'm up there thinking, this is not normal. This is not a normal environment, and it's not okay. And these people think they're okay because they think they're on some like noble mission or righteous mission from God, but they haven't met enough folks like us, like me, like my friends and neighbors who are transgender, who want to just have a job, a safe apartment to live in, and the ability to connect with their family. So I think civil rights would be my minor. And I think it expands not just LGBTQ Iowans, but women in the abortion ban. We were the first state in the country to pass an abortion ban after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And we've seen how they've weaponized all of our information against us in favor of supporting ICE. They just signed that agreement with the federal government to share our driver's license and personal data with the federal government to ease immigration enforcement. I think it's an absolute invasion of privacy. It's also dangerous. And we see every day, including this week, how dangerous ICE can be to our communities. And the only reason Des Moines doesn't look like Minnesota right now is because we're a red state. And that is how transactional this federal administration has been. So to recap what you asked, protecting our health as it relates to the environment and civil rights. So that'd be my major and minor.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Ma, did you want me to continue or did you want to pick back up?
No, you can keep going.
Okay. What are some
Sorry
ways
if you hear
that
my cat feet in the background.
That's okay. What are some ways that you're active in your community?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start with a broader lens. This last summer, and this was for my work, but also an interest of mine, I spent the summer crisscrossing the state of Iowa. I went to every corner of the state, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and Des Moines, talking with Iowans about our cancer crisis. We have, again, the second highest cancer rates in the country and the fastest rising. And in every community, when we were having that conversation, it was my role to design the format of the session, find the location, find a community voice to share their cancer story, facilitate a conversation, really focused on hearing stories, but also identifying potential solutions. Because any solutions that we have at the state capitol must always include the voices of Iowans, not just from here in Des Moines, though we get ignored a lot because we have a Republican supermajority in the state, but every Iowan across the state. And one of the things that was part of that conversation that we would ask, we did this little exercise of raise your hand if you agree with this, sort of like an icebreaker. And we'd start with something simple like, I prefer city living to country life, raise your hand. Okay, the opposite, raise your hand. And then I would make the pivot into, let's talk about something more topical for tonight. And the question I would start with is, I or someone close to me has been diagnosed with cancer. And every single hand in every single room went up. 566 hands across the state, and all of those rooms went up every single time. And you could feel the moment the room changed, because it brought down the skepticism. It brought down the who are these people coming in from Des Moines, and it immediately pivoted to solutions. And I really think that that's very critical to addressing any issue across the state. And that included a session here in Des Moines. And another thing that I'll note is in my role in professional roles and those sorts of things, I've worked on environmental justice as a key priority, whether that's the fact that we have some of the nation's oldest housing in my district. We have the highest levels of lead paint. We have some of the worst air pollution, and then corresponding health conditions like asthma, COPD, children in poverty. All of these things are things that I am aware of in my community. I see it in my community. I've run nearly every street in this district just to get a better feel of the physical nature of what it's like to live here in the East Village, of course, where I live, but also over in the East Side and along Hubble Avenue, where the sidewalk is not as nice as it is outside my place. So getting a feel of that. I've served on local boards for nonprofits, including the Polk Clean Energy District, that's focused on helping low-income families in our state and in our county lower their electricity bills and keep their lights on. I know that Black families in the United States are much more likely. 1 in 4 Black families actually are expected to face energy insecurity. And that is nothing that is new to the folks in my district. You're choosing between paying the power bill or going to the dentist or paying for your kids' lunch at school. That's the life I grew up living. And I relate to that very much every day in the work that I do, because I want to make sure that we live in a state that supports those folks as they get ahead. And having that experience combined with the knowledge is the way that I want to give back to my community, because it's important to me that the next young gay kid from the Des Moines area has the support that they need, and that they don't have to, stand in the lunch line and get a cheese sandwich, instead of the same meal that everybody else is getting because they have lunch debt. That's why I'm in this fight. It's also why I want to serve my community, and those are some ways that I do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. It's good when candidates are actually active members of their community rather than just like not knowing anything about
Right.
their community.
Yeah. And I told you I wouldn't be long-winded, but in another conversation where we can be long-winded, I'll tell you about the grant applications I've helped put together and all of that sort of stuff. But I'll save that for a longer conversation.
Okay. Now this is kind of a controversial question. Cats or dogs and why?
Well, I don't know if you've heard. Let's see if I can get her to come up here. Come on. You're bugging me all day to get up here. She's very vocal, but this is my rescue, Luna. She is very sweet, and she is very vocal. She
Oh,
says
she
hello.
said hi.
She did. And she has been saying it the whole time, but I have been able to manipulate my Zoom settings to the effect of keeping her out of it most of the time. But
Yeah.
she always has something to say. But I am a cat person, always have been, but I do love dogs as well. I just have a little bit more of an allergy to dogs. So that would be my answer.
That's a good answer. I prefer cats because I have dogs.
That's funny.
A lot of
I
dogs.
grew up with really big dogs, like Saint Bernards.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, you'd be going to school, you'd be like all dressed up for school, and they'd run out, like slobber all over you and like shake their head and just
Covered in
get all
dog hair all the time.
exactly. So I think I'm a little bit particular about it now.
What are your top priorities? And this cannot include healthcare, the environment, or education.
Okay. Cannot include healthcare, environment, and education. Okay. Well, I think that there are a lot of things that we can do around food security and energy security. So let me talk about what that means. When we get into the technical, and this is what my graduate studies were in, what we call the energy burden. When you pay more than 30% of your annual income on your energy bills, you're considered to have an energy burden. And here in my district in Des Moines, we're in the 60th to 70th, sometimes 82nd percentile nationally. meaning we're 82% higher than the rest of the country in some areas of this district of what we pay as a share of our income on our energy bills. So we do have lower rates as a whole from other states, but particularly on the eastern side of the state, which I think is where you all are, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. The people that are in the Alliant Energy Service Territory, they pay the same for their electricity as people in New Jersey. The difference is the median income in New Jersey is much, much higher. And so I think that we need to have an opportunity where the state's utilities, which are granted monopoly status, meaning they can have no competitors in their service area, they do that in exchange for what the state said would be regulation. And we have these standards that are, just and reasonable, right? The Utilities Commission, that's their mandate. You got to keep it just and reasonable. So you have to look at cost. You have to look at, is it a worthy cause of using energy? But we're in this environment now where we have AI, data centers, and people that do cryptocurrency and Bitcoin mining. There's one person that the member of the Utilities Commission just this last year was telling me about that moves around the state on any given day and uses as much electricity as a small town. And he'll shut it off if he's asked to, and that's one of the ways that they're handling the data center demand and that sort of thing. But I asked him, what tools do we need to protect Iowans from these rate increases from really heavy energy users like that who are just extracting for their own personal private wealth? And the answer was 30 seconds of silence, really deep thought, and then I don't know the answer to that question. And when we have appointed and elected officials that don't understand this challenge or how to protect Iowans from the vulnerability that is incoming, and it's only going to get worse because we're bringing nuclear plants back online. They want to build gas peaker plants for hundreds of millions of dollars. We have to have leaders that understand not just the ins and outs of energy policy and how to keep rates down, but who have lived what it's like when the lights are off and what it's like to come home to a cold home. And I grew up in a rural area that was, you come out and the LP and the gas tank was out. And that's, $1,000 to get it filled. We didn't have that kind of money. And so making sure that we have folks that are focused on that is a top priority for me because it's crucial. Just like clean water, reliable electricity is one of the most foundational things, especially for folks who are older, seniors. There's a lot of seniors in this district who have medical devices, CPAP machines, things that they need to sustain their care and their life, rely on reliable electricity. So I don't know if that was considered an environment thing. Maybe it was, but I think it's more about the cost of electricity. So that's one thing. I'm happy to give more examples if you'd like.
I really
That's
like
okay.
that answer. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I lost my spot. Hang on just a
10.
second. Oh, yes. I didn't. I just didn't know where to look. Are you supportive of the private school voucher program?
I am not. In fact, I think that one of the things that is most concerning is how much in the time I've lived in Iowa, which has been my entire adult life, how Iowa has backslid. And what brought me to this state in the first place was Iowa State University, one of our public institutions. And I know this is different from the voucher program, but I'll get back to that. I have seen the graphs, and I was an advocate for affordable education, public education, for many years before I was running for this seat. And there's the graph that shows state allocated dollars to public universities, in this case, public schools, going straight down. And for our four-year universities, tuition goes exactly up. And then those same people want to complain about student loan forgiveness and helping students manage their debt. And we're seeing the same trend now with our K through 12 public schools. And that's what this private voucher scam has brought to the people of Iowa. And there are a lot of private schools in Des Moines now where these students are transferring or that sort of thing. And I think, there are some guardrails that maybe would have made this program less bad. If you were a low income student and your parents want to put you through a private Christian school, okay, maybe, I don't know, I could see the reasoning behind that, but that school should have to report on that public money that's going there just as a public school has to. They should also have a public school board that keeps them in line, that sets the budget that people can run for and oversee if they're going to get public money. And it extends to so many other issues. In fact, I was just talking earlier this week about radon exposure. Might not seem related, but there's the Gail Orcutt radon in schools law that just passed a couple years ago She had gotten this law named after her because of her advocacy, and it requires public schools to test for radon in their facilities. Children are very vulnerable for these health impacts, and then develop a plan. And there's some shortcomings in the law; it doesn't really require implementation, but the idea is that once it's public, the public schools will, move forward. Private schools are not required to test. They're not required to disclose. They're not required to do an action plan. So it again is an example of this dichotomy where we are gutting our rural communities. And I care about every island. I live here in Des Moines. I'm running for this seat. I care about North and East High School in this area. I've seen what's happening to them, and I've heard from teachers and school board members about the challenges they face. But this is not just bad for districts like this. It's awful for our rural communities that are consolidating school districts and closing them. So I'm not supportive of it in any way, shape, or form in the way that it's been done. Now, it'll be tricky to get out of it, but I think that with the right people in power and the right people in office up there, we can find a pragmatic path forward that protects students and the education that their families want to give them, but also protects our public schools, our teachers, and our communities from the gutting that we're seeing now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discourse, specifically of like Democrats running, on whether the end goal is to get rid of the private school voucher program or to work with it. Which would you say your end goal is?
I think my end goal would be to get rid of it. I think that public schools deserve public money, and I don't think that I support spending public school dollars on Christian institutions or religious institutions generally. That honestly, I think the end game is to indoctrinate students. I really do, to create a more conservative electorate here in the state. And that's just my opinion. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory. I don't know. But I also think those same schools get to say no to kids like me because they don't want a gay student. And they get to say no to a special needs student because they don't want to have to deal with that. And at the same time, they raise their tuition for just about the same amount, almost per dollar, as the scholarship allowed, right? And so it's funneling money to schools that are not accessible to our students. And specifically those who are already vulnerable, leaving them in the schools that then have less money to provide for them. And that's the ultimate trap that we face here. So what we should be doing is investing in the right solutions for our public schools to make sure that they are the best schools in the state, that they have the most opportunities, and that nobody needs to go to a private school. If they want to go to a religious school, that's fine, but they should pay for it out of their own pocket.
Yeah, that's a really good answer.
Thank you.
Now, if you could pass legislation on a petty grievance, what would it be and why? Here's an example.
Oh, I love this question.
So my example is like, I support public transportation and investing in public transportation for all of the obvious reasons, like it's accessible, it's affordable, it's good for the environment, but also to reduce traffic and get bad drivers off the road.
I love that. Let me think. I feel like there are, on a petty reason. I want everybody to be exposed. I want all the money in our system to be exposed. I mean, our utilities, as I mentioned, they're like one of the biggest players up there, but they're not legally allowed to give political contributions. So they have this like expected, all the executives give 10% of their salary or 5%. And it's the same with Farm Bureau, who is like ostensibly an insurance company, which, running for office, all the laws are like no money from an insurance company. But then they like have a pack over here. And then we see the same thing with large agribusiness where they're doing the same thing. We see it in these right-wing religious zealots that are running the policy agenda for our state. So I would love to just have one bill that's like any political transaction, any contribution to a candidate, a PAC is all public, just for 1 year, and see what happens. I want it all to come out at the same time. And I want us to all be able to pour through it and be able to figure that out. And that's my pettiness. Because I often find myself in conversations, I'm like, how did we end up here? Who asked for this, right? And the answer is almost always it comes to it. I think the private school voucher is a good example of that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it is a really good one. That's like one of the most unique ones I've heard. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that was really good. Yay.
Mom, it's your turn.
Okay. No, wait, I just started to read the wrong question. See, we have to write these down because I have ADHD. Um, what
This
would
is
you
also the most
say?
fun interview I've had yet, and I just want to thank
Yay.
you for that. It's like really substantive, it's really interesting, and it's like it gives you the chance to like get all the big stuff out of the way, but then like get into the nuts and bolts. So thank you for that.
Yay. Thank you for that because we thought our questions were just lame. Um, what would you consider valid experience for someone who's running for Iowa House or Iowa Senate?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, let me start with what I faced when I got into this race, challenging a 16-year incumbent, one who I had a lot of respect for, like I said, but ran because I thought it was too important to sit it out. I ran because I don't think anybody's owed a seat. Not one person in the Iowa legislature, leadership, majority, minority, whatever it is, based on identity, based on work experience, based on whatever it is, nobody is owed a seat in our government. We live in a state, we live in a country where you should have to earn votes from your peers to represent them. And so when we talk about experience, I care less about, and I know I just talked a lot about like my experience in environmental space and all that. But what I think I bring more than anything, and what I think is most important for me, is authenticity and lived experience. And I feel like one of the reasons the Iowa Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party has struggled to win elections is because we've started by saying, you fit this mold in this district, you're our candidate, and now we're going to tell you what to run on.
Mhm.
That is not what I believe is the case. It should be the case at all. It happens. But when I started this campaign, the only people who asked me to start were people that are my neighbors, that are my colleagues, that are my friends, people that know me and know that I'm in this for the right reason. And I'm happy that, regardless of what the outcome is, we're going to have a representative who's able to show up and do the work, whether it's me or somebody else that jumps in the race at this point. But I think the most important experience for me is lived experience. What is it like to grow up with, excuse me, and not be able to afford your groceries, afford to go to school, pay your rent? I mean, I've been in situations where a roommate paid a rent and I paid my rent for a few months and I paid them back, or almost had to unenroll from Iowa State because my loan didn't go through, or maybe I got shorted on something. All of that stuff is way more important to me than what's on your resume. And I think Iowans are really hungry for authentic candidates that bring their unique perspectives to the solutions and solutions to the problems that we face. And that's what I hope I'm doing with this campaign.
Awesome. We talk about the experience thing a lot, obviously. Um, our kind of stance on it is that you don't need to have a resume. You don't need to have, 15 years as an attorney behind you. You need
Right.
to love where you are and love the state and love your neighbors and want better for them. And
Right.
there's no specific, qualifications for that. It's just based on your life experiences and what you can bring to the table. So I think
Right.
that that's pretty similar to how we feel about it. So with
And
campaigning and stuff, when did
I was
you
just going to
announce?
say, and
Yeah.
the first, like the people who will say, "Oh, you're not experienced," those people are the ones who are not in it for the reasons you just discussed, right? They're not the ones who want to stand up for their community, protect the most vulnerable, do this not just because it's a thing on a resume, but
Right.
because it matters, right? And so
Yeah.
that's often a good litmus test for those watching this conversation or and running themselves. Those folks that attack you for that are often the ones who are not in it for the right reasons.
Could
So I
not
just wanted
agree
to.
more. No, yes. What keeps you going? Because everybody well, not everybody knows. Most people don't know how exhausting it is to run a campaign. Um, so what kind of keeps you moving forward?
Well, I love that question because it gets left out. And honestly, it took me about a year and a half to decide to run. I met with the person in the seat now, like I said, and it was really kind of in some ways, and maybe this isn't politically advantageous to say, but I was kind of hoping to be talked out of it because it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I love my job. I love my community. I love my friends. I play soccer and volleyball and I'm active. I run a lot and I love that. And I have this life now that I've spent my entire life building. And I'm like, do I really want to like jump in? And the answer to me was, I have to. In this moment, it is way too important to sit it out. And what keeps me going is that love for my friends, my community, the people that I'm serving, and the fact that I can actually make a difference in this seat more so than anything else I've done before. The other thing, just on a more personal note, that has kept me going recently, I just got off the phone with my sister right before this call, and she's about to have a baby. And I'm going to be an uncle for the first time, and it's going to be her first kid. And I'm just like, I can't help but make the comparison between him and me when I was born, and thinking about, what do I want for him what do I not want him to go through that I had to go through? What challenges do I want to support him through and help him avoid, right? And for me, that might be the closest I ever have to a child of my own. But my sister is my best friend, and my brother is also like my other best friend. So we're lucky to have that relationship. But it was born out of a lot of tragedy in our family too. Just to share a little bit more, I grew up with a mother who had a substance abuse problem. And ultimately, that claimed her life when I started graduate school just about 4 or 5 years ago. And so that was an experience that I had from the time I was 13 until I was 27. And that type of lived experience is, again, something you can't teach. But what keeps me going are the bonds of the community that I built around myself and my family. And I'm just so excited about the future of having, not being the youngest in the family for once, and having a nephew that I can support and love and nurture. And that is just, I don't know, it kind of changes your perspective. I was just talking to my sister about this. Like, you're the one having the kid, and she lives out in California, so she's not close. But just having that in my life is really exciting, keeps me motivated.
Awesome. I think that the best thing to keep you motivated, right, is always like kind of your family and who's close to you. Um, so just a few questions left. What is your hottest take?
My hottest take. Oh, okay. Um, oh man, this is tough. Um, can you give me an example of what your hottest takes would be? Maybe it'll inspire something for me.
Oh, you don't want to hear mine. Layla, what do you got?
I think my hottest take recently, I have two. Number
Okay.
one, not everything that happens is a distraction from the Epstein files.
Yes.
And then my other hot take is that we're only as cooked or as doomed as we believe that we are.
Right.
That's a hot take, and people don't like that one, but I
Right.
think it's the truth.
Right. My job title includes the words climate change. And so I often deal with people who are like, well, what can we do about it anyway? So I think my hottest take is like, just because it's a big challenge and most people have checked out, it doesn't mean that you can. And I think that's probably my hottest take on a lot of these issues. Like, I've been an environmental advocate in Iowa for 10 years now. And that's been my career. And I've helped pass 4 bills, but those 4 bills make a difference, right? It might only be 4 bills versus the, large agribusiness passing hundreds, or, right-wing religious groups passing the school vouchers or whatever. But some kids are protected from lead poisoning in water. Farmers are able to keep solar energy, and homeowners are allowed to keep solar energy on their home to reduce their energy bills. Helping small town facilities and small businesses be able to invest in expanding. That's another thing I've worked on. So, these things they can often seem insurmountable, but if you check out, you're doing it to yourself in a lot of the ways. And so we have to make sure that we're not just resigning to, they're in control. This is not changeable. I can't blame people for moving away. We all know people that are moving away for their own political or safety reasons, and especially being a member of the LGBTQ community, I can definitely see that, and it's real. But at the same time, we have to recognize that this is changeable, it's modifiable, and it's something that we allow happen. So we just have to work harder and do more. I have to believe that, or I couldn't do this sort of thing.
100%. What is your wokest take?
Wokest take.
Yep.
Oh man. Okay. Um, that's so funny. I feel like I spend a lot of my time like trying to dance around these because I work with Republican politicians.
Uh-huh.
And so like trying to find like, how do I not say it that way?
Yep.
Uh, I think that my wokest take, this is really tough for me. I'm usually like, I can do the hard hitting questions, but
we're a pretty woke group of Iowans. Two things
I
that
love that.
are very strange to hear in a sentence together, I think.
No, I sometimes joke that like woke is not dead, because like we do, these different things, and they just don't know it's woke, right?
Right.
Um, my wokest take is that the Iowa legislature is DEI for white farmers.
If I
The way
could,
that our electoral politics work is that, and I hope that this doesn't be the clip that goes viral, but
oh my God.
uh, you know, the way that our politics work is like if
Mhm.
you're a rural white guy that's a farmer, like sign up, you can be governor too. And that is, the Republican Party sometimes function as DEI for rural white men. So that's maybe the funny woke take that I have for the day.
The internal screaming that just happened as you said that. Because yeah.
I'd argue it goes deeper than that too. Like the Electoral College is DEI,
Right,
like
right,
Or just white
white
men.
people,
right,
white guys in the Midwest. Like,
right.
Yeah. What is something you've learned about yourself from campaigning?
Mm. And this is actually, I'm going to turn it into advice for other first-time candidates. When I started, the state party was like, please wait, please don't run.
Hmm.
And it was not all of them; it was leadership, because it was an incumbent, it was a safe district, as we've talked about. And I said, wait for what? Wait for what? This person is not able to show up and do the job. This is not somebody who's raising money, getting attention, helping build the majority. And it's not a criticism of that person, it's a criticism of the system. And they just kept saying, wait. And I was like, you know what? It's too important. I genuinely mean it. It's too important for me to not do it. And again, if I end up losing the primary to somebody else who jumps in, so be it. I hope that that person shows up and does the job, right? So I think that, you know, it don't wait for somebody to tell you that this is going to be, something that you're capable of. And make sure that you trust your instincts, because in politics everybody who's won thinks that their recipe is the winning formula. And some people will be like, hey, here's what I did, might work for you. Other people will be like, you have to do this, and you have to do it on Monday at 10 a.m. and you have to have like $30,000 in the bank before you start. And I had zero pledges before I started this campaign, and this is going to come out in the beginning of the year with the reporting. I raised $12,000 from grassroots donations, and that's just folks that are excited about the ideas behind this campaign, excited for what I stand for, and giving hope to a vision of something to vote for. And so that would be kind of how I would answer that question: is trust your instincts and make sure that you don't lose your values in this. And that's what I've learned about myself in this whole thing. Because there's been things that I've thought, okay, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Do I say it this way? Do I weigh in on this? And there, you can't be everywhere. You can't do everything perfectly. I never will be. There will be parts of this interview that I'll watch later maybe and be like, oh, why did I say that? But you just have to give yourself the grace of knowing that it's okay not to be perfect, and nobody is. What matters is that you show up and that you're doing the work for the right reasons to serve the people in your community. And that's why I'm in it.
I love that. Okay, we usually do rapid fire kind of at the end, and it's only two questions, and you've kind of already answered them. We always ask, are you pro-choice?
Absolutely, 100%.
Fantastic. And then LGBTQ plus rights.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And to expand on it too, I have, as a key part of my platform, I've got like my flyers around here somewhere, but one of the key tenets that I've put on there is, I don't know why I lost it in this 5 minutes, but one of the key tenets of my platform is looking out for every Iowan. And that includes LGBTQ Iowans and restoring our civil rights that we've had taken away. It also includes giving rights to women who have had them stripped away. It includes looking out for people of color who have been punched down at from this legislature, immigrants and dreamers in the state of Iowa, people who came here in search of a better life that contribute to my community, especially, but also these rural communities with these folks voting against them. These are valued members of our community, and we need a state. We deserve a state. It's our home that we can be proud of. And I am proud of a state that looks out for every single Iowan and doesn't other them And I want to be a part of this new wave of candidates of voices in this party that stands up and say, I might be a white gay man in downtown Des Moines, but I have a lot in common with a person of color who's a woman who's running in, Southeast Iowa maybe. And so there's way more that unites her and I than there are a lot of the people in the legislature now and the backgrounds that they come from. So I think it's critical that we have to look out for every single item because it's our home.
Absolutely. Okay, so two more questions. Why should your constituents vote for you?
Mm. There's going to be other options in the race, I have no doubt. And I'm excited for that competition because I think it's important that primaries happen every time as often as possible and that everybody gets to start from a level playing field. Because what determines it then, when there are a bunch of candidates in, and maybe we share similar identities, maybe black, white, gay, straight, whatever it might be, eventually that stuff falls away and it becomes about the substance and who is going to work on your behalf. What ideas do they have? What experience do they have to prove that they're willing to work for those ideas? And again, I don't mean resume. I mean, who's going to dedicate their time and has proven that they serve their community? They look out for these people that they're telling you that they do look out for. And that's what I bring to this race. I will be absolutely 100% dedicated, and I will never promise something that I can't actually make progress on. I'm going to be very honest. I will be straightforward, and I will work my ass off every single day at the Iowa legislature to make sure that this community, this state is a better place to live, to work, to raise a family. It's a state that we have clean water and we're not worried about what we drink out of the tap is giving us cancer. It's a state that addresses our cancer crisis. It's a state that looks out, recognize for every Iowan, recognizing that we all face different challenges from start to finish in our lives. And we need a state government that recognizes that. Not everybody, but everybody starts in the same rung of the ladder per se, and making sure that that is considered in every single thing that we do is something that I will bring up there every single day because I've lived it. And so if you're looking for a reason to vote for me, it can be any of those things, but just know I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to work incredibly hard, tirelessly for this community as an advocate for those who have also struggled through the things that we've all struggled through.
Awesome. Okay, where can people find you? Your socials, your website, all of the things.
Yeah, you can visit me at codyforiowahouse.com. That's my website. That's the best place to look through. I've got my issues up there. I think it's really important that candidates have issues really spelled out. Again, about the advice thing, some people are like, who the hell are you to have issues and run on values? And it's not that hard. Run on the things that you think your community believes in. And if you're right, you'll win the race. And so that's what I'm doing. My issues are up there. Cody for Iowa on Instagram, on TikTok, on Threads, and on Facebook. I decided not to do Twitter for many reasons. And I am nowhere near as good at TikTok as Layla is, but I am working on it. I'm like the zillennial kind of cutoff where like TikTok stresses me out, but it's quite fun. So I just kind of I make mine look more like webinars. So if you're interested in looking at that, feel free to find me on there too.
Awesome. And then what is your big ask for the people that support you?
My biggest ask is not going to be for money. It's not going to be for anything like that. Though, if you want to chip in, feel free. It's going to just be to pay attention to the issues that are going on. Really do your research about the substance of the candidates in my race and across the state, and be strategic about who you're considering and what type of person you want up there every day. Because some people are really good at the sound bites. Some people are really good at raising money, and some people have a lot of support behind them from people outside the district. Pick the one that's right for you. But I think that my big ask is to check out my website, check out who I am, learn more about me, and reach out to me. I will have like my contact info is on my website. I'm always down to grab a coffee to talk more about these issues. And if there's a blind spot out of all these issues that we've talked about, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. I want to learn from you. So that's my big ask is reach out to me, get in touch, and let's talk about the issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this and talking to us. We know it,
Yeah.
especially it gets really awkward when, we haven't talked to 90% of the people we're talking to previous to getting on a weird Zoom and recording it. So we appreciate the willingness to come on.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'll be thinking about my hot takes as I leave this interview today, thinking about I need to be better on that one. So a lot of times
Can't
I'm
wait.
trying to bury my opinion on some of those things. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy the weekend.
Bye.